Hey, it's time. It's time. It's time for Sun in Pisces, Moon in Sagittarius. Why? Because right now, this video is all about me and some other people. But right now, it's all about me. So the challenge with giving astrological interpretations based on placements and aspects that you have in your own chart is paring it down. So I'm going to try a different format to help me keep things concise, and this video will be my guinea pig. So let's start with the Sun in Pisces. We've already done some combos with Sun in Pisces so far. So we'll talk about the Sun in the sense of vitality, ego, the true will, how one feels empowered or disempowered, and how you give power to others, and how you might inadvertently or on purpose take it from others. So the Sun in Pisces, their vitality is dependent primarily on their emotional state. And you could say this about pretty much all the water signs. The Pisces vitality often has a lot to do with worrying. So there's a tendency to worry about their children or their own fate. And if a Pisces surrounds themselves with people who are chronic worriers, well, first of all, we are going to surround ourselves with people who are partial reflections of our own chronic habits. Chronic doesn't have to be bad either, it just means habitual, really. So in particular, solar Pisces, and if a Pisces were to have, let's say, Mercury in Pisces or other water signs, particularly susceptible to those around them. So it's important for solar Pisces, if they want to keep their physical health up, emotionally, they really need to stop worrying about so much in others, and be really confident that, you know, things are going along as they should, because Pisces in the most evolved form is about acceptance, and part of that is accepting the current of life, right? And a Pisces ego is rooted in acceptance. They generally, most Pisces find it very easy to listen to other people's opinions of them and can be pushed around pretty easily. So a Pisces needs to learn how to follow their inner guide. And the will of the Pisces is not strong by nature. It's a mutable sign, and it's water. So when you're talking about the Sun, which is a masculine luminary, we're not talking about water and feminine. We're talking about fusion. We're talking about shining outward, and Pisces, water, mutable, receptive, right? So us Pisces, need to learn to follow our own dreams and desires rather than want to go with the crowd or just sort of fade off into obscurity, because it's easier to, relent to a more fatalistic point of view. We tend not to want to make a lot of waves, and so unless there's some strong fire or cardinal signs activating the Sun, like I have Mercury in Aries, and it's 6 degrees away or 7 degrees away from my 29 degrees Pisces, so I do get fiery at times, and I do want to accomplish things, but it is really easy for me personally to listen to other people's stories of woe and failure and think, oh, wow, that could happen to me. Well, it could, but it couldn't too, right? So learning how to speak up and say yes or no is a strong Pisces trait. Pisces feels empowered when they are living life on their own terms while still able to help others. There needs to be that balance for the vast majority of us. The Pisces feels disempowered when other people don't approve of them, and when they allow other people to change their mind regarding a desire or goal. So, we tend to feel disempowered when we're seeking approval. Essentially, we never really should be seeking approval when it comes to directing ourselves with our true will. When we align ourselves with what we really want to do and who we really want to be, other people's approval means nothing. It's bonus if they approve, but it shouldn't be a deciding factor. Pisces takes power from others sometimes by really indirect means, like passive-aggressive behavior, little remarks here and there, or sometimes just withdrawing themselves from a situation or relationship altogether for months or years at a time. Pisces gives power to others by showing people, by being an example. I think mutable signs do well as being an example, and by showing people that one can be both sensitive and strong and vulnerable and confident and both selfish and selfless, that there can be a balance. So now let's go on to the moon in Sagittarius. We talk about the moon sign, and it tends to be more active early on, and moon is receptive. It's the feminine luminary, and it receives, and so it's very affected by environment, particularly early childhood environment up to about like 7 or 8 years old. That's just a rough estimate. So the moon represents emotions and intuition, what makes you feel at home, how you express and interpret emotions, and how you react when you feel threatened emotionally. And can you react from a place of internal confidence, or do you react in a knee-jerk sort of way, right? And I think as we grow up, hopefully we are less knee-jerky, but who's to say? So for moon in Sagittarius, the emotions of a lunar centaur are philosophical and always seeking out the source and the truth of the feelings. The intuition is strong and always aligned with the inner knowledge that everything will work out. The moon in Sagittarius generally has this really strong feeling that like the universe has our back, like things do work out, and if we just let things happen in a natural way and we don't get too attached to an outcome, that what is best for us is what will happen. So over-optimism is a thing sometimes with moon in Sagittarius, so gotta be careful about that. But the Sagittarius moon tends to feel at home, believe it or not, in environments that don't feel like home. They might like change around their decorations a lot, or paint and repaint, or or in general, like for instance, when I go traveling, I feel really comfortable, and I want to, like, being around different things feels good to me, and having to pick up the language, eat new food, learn the lay of the land, even if I'm not in a foreign place, I'm just in another city in the States, just learning new things in terms of where I am geographically. And Sagittarius is a sign of long distance travel, and finding that reach, that cross-cultural reach. So sometimes we feel at home when we're not at home. The Sagittarius moon expresses emotions creatively and with quite a bit of conviction, always looking to be a little bit deeper, or we might be prone to using a lot of metaphors and being a bit more poetic, and we prefer to be less trite when we're letting people know how we feel, because when we do express our emotions, the Sagittarius moon doesn't really have time, like Aries moon doesn't really have time to have any guile behind what they're saying. So if we tell you that we feel something, we're really honest, and we want to let you know that by showing you in a way that's that's not just giving you a card and saying, I'm so glad to know you. We like to take things. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, so sometimes we like to get a little glamorous. So when a Sagittarius moon is interpreting other people's emotions, they'll do it very quickly, because fire does interpret quickly, and sometimes with an inquisitive bent, always trying to find a deeper reason for someone's anger or sadness or their lashing out. And they tend to want to make light of emotionally charged situations with either humor, which is appropriate, or deflection, which is generally when we see something that we know it makes us feel uncomfortable because that's part of us, and we're like, ooh, we're just going to deflect that. Or inappropriate humor, which Sagittarius is known for foot and mouth syndrome too. Thankfully, I have some astrological placements that I hope lend me more tact than that. So when a Sagittarius moon is less evolved and it has knee-jerk reactions, it's kind of typical of a fire moon. Quick to anger, or quick to get sad, or quick to assume the worst, but then snapping back very easily. Easy to forgive and forget. When we mature, when the Sagittarius moon matures and learns to utilize their more philosophical side, and they don't run away from the emotional situations that make them uncomfortable, because Sagittarius does tend to just, get the horse legs on and leave when things become a little bit uncomfortable or they feel like they can't handle them. Then we kind of like to find a common ground. Like, we like to look at people lashing out, and we create a little space and we say, hey, what's the common ground here? We are seekers. We like to seek the source of emotion and seek and get to the bottom of things, so we can then deal with them and not feel the urge to run away every time some uncomfortable emotion pops up. So the moon, we always talk about how it indicates particular environmental factors regarding the mother or the mother figure, which is not always mom. So Sagittarius moon indicates a mother who is not present in some way. It could be not there at all, for whatever reason, just not physically there, from very early on or later on. Maybe one that's in and out of the house, that travels for work a lot. They could be estranged for some reason. Maybe they traveled for pleasure too a lot. And the Sagittarius moon, their mother or mother figure, may have been one that was really into following their dreams, and they wanted to do a lot of things, and they didn't feel compelled to stay at home with the kids constantly, right? That's neither right nor wrong, in my opinion. So as such, the Sagittarius moon, most of us really love to travel and find ourselves in new places. And we may even travel for work. I do. I don't travel as extensively as I want to, but it's happening. It's going to happen. And working with people with different cultures and different spiritual backgrounds, because the Sagittarius moon, like I said, there's a philosophy, and there's a philosophical bent, the idea of connecting in a higher way. So sometimes if a Sagittarius moon is born in a religious environment, they sort of enjoy that system of spirituality, but eventually, depending on how the religion was taught, if it became more dogmatic and rigid, they'll generally find their way out of it. And we do like to seek out spiritual fulfillment and sometimes hop from philosophy to philosophy. Like myself, for instance, I was raised going to like a Christian school, and it was very damnation based, and very early on in life I was like, I don't have any interest in following a religion, but I do think they're fascinating to study. So that could be another thing where it's like religion and theology and history are so fascinating, and there's something deeply viscerally interesting about them, but no desire to become part of a system, and yet creating their own system. Or for me, I practice yoga, and not just asana, I mean philosophically. So that can always be a really big part of the Sag moon. And Pisces loves to seek too, but the Pisces tends to want to seek internally. Sagittarius likes to seek externally. So even though these two signs are considered to be a square or challenging to one another, those differences, I think, can really balance out that desire to grow as a person. There's some texts too, before we move on, that indicate that for whatever reason, the Sagittarius moon's mother or mother figure develops feelings of jealousy towards the person with the Sagittarius moon. Now, that could be a number of things. I have known a lot of Sagittarius moons, including myself, who became closer with the father and was looked up more to the father as mom. And so maybe the mother gets jealous of that, or it could just be that the mother has their own securities that they have to deal with. I've also spoken with some subjects who, like me, Sag Moon, and their mother told them later on in life, you know, when you were born, I didn't really have like that immediate connection to you. I've heard this a few times now. They didn't feel that immediate, oh, like they're supposed to, and which is fine, but they just didn't get that immediate bond that they thought they were supposed to get. So when we put Sun Pisces and Moon Sagittarius together, we get a really imagination-driven individual. So care should be taken to not spend too much time with the head in the clouds. And there's got to be, like, you know, action, and they do need to be taught, you know, how to function in the mundane world, even if it's just to get by, right? So both signs have a tendency to run when there's a problem. Pisces likes to sort of like escape, particularly if it's like work related, anytime there's dissent, and their escape sometimes comes in the form of addiction, or and that could be anything. Addiction can be, and we all have them, whether it's video games or Facebook or alcohol or whatever. The Sagittarius moon, when they want to escape, when the emotional going gets too tough, they feel like they're always in these dead-end relationships, or all their friends are this, or their family's that, then they tend to like get up and go far away, traveling clear across the country, the state, or the town, or wherever it is, the world. So eventually what happens is, you know, they think, oh, things will be better if I just leave, I'll just go to this place. I did that a couple times. So what eventually we find out is that the Pisces sun has to find their own voice and deal with their insecurities, and Sagittarius moon has to either find sort of a spiritual path or code where they're in a checks and balances for their own, like the things that come up that are uncomfortable, and the things that create whatever their knee-jerk reactions are, which, like I said, is generally very fiery and sort of dramatic, and sort of, you know, assuming the worst and then maybe running. So they might, you know, end relationships or friendships very abruptly, and you might hear from them later, you might not. So like the monk life can appeal a lot to both the Pisces and the Sagittarius aspects of the personality. It wouldn't be forever, but, you know, they might like that. And then they also might fulfill their vitality, their spiritual vitality, by submersing themselves around different people. Just, you know, inclusivity. They really enjoy the idea that there are no labels, that labels are just divisive. Both signs enjoy that idea of connecting. So this combination within 9 degrees in the chart creates a square, so the challenges of these two signs become more heightened, but once developed, you know, once they grow up and mature and evolve, the friction can create a depth of personality that sometimes isn't seen when the two luminaries have a positive aspect. Positive aspects, harmonious aspects, easy ones, can be good, you know, for the person, but sometimes it creates not a very nuanced person. If one does not experience a lot of conflicts internally and externally, then how do we really grow? We need to feel stressed to grow a little bit. So there are people out there who have a lot of harmonious aspects, and they seem to have a pretty easy life. Things come easily to them, and, you know, neither is good or bad. I'm not really saying that it's good or bad. So the main conflicts between these two luminaries in these signs are, you know, Pisces likes to keep quiet and keep the peace, and Sagittarius wants to champion for themselves or for others that can't speak for themselves, out against perceived injustices. And while Pisces is kind of on board with helping the underdog, they prefer to do it in more subversive ways, and Sagittarius is more about, you know, let's get the bow out and, you know, shoot the injustice. Pisces likes to be soft and gentle and go about things the path of least resistance, and Sagittarius will often insert foot in mouth and clear the air, and sometimes piss off a few people. Pisces is concerned about making other people feel good, and Sagittarius tends to react first and then maybe patch things up later. But because the Sagittarius moon tends to kind of get over things quickly, like emotionally, the capability of getting over hurts and betrayal is a bit bigger. They're able to move on a little bit more. a little bit more easily, a little bit more quickly. So don't take it personally if your Sagittarius moon X doesn't really, pine for you, or, ever speak of your relationship fondly. It's just that they moved on, because they can do that. Sagittarius wants to explore emotions more deeply and let out what is bothering them. Pisces is concerned about being too bold or imposing on other people, so they tend to hold things in to their unhealthiness, really. Sagittarius loves to clear the air by dropping a truth bomb, and sometimes that really is necessary. Maybe that's why I love people that just like say whatever they're thinking at every moment. I kind of wish I could do that. And Pisces would rather shrink back and retract the statement, or not say it at all, or wait for the right time. It's about timing. When is the wave rising? Oh, I'm going to speak about this when the wave is at its highest, when people are at their most receptive. Sagittarius doesn't really wait for that. The water-fire combo can come across as somewhat like a dichotomous. Bipolar isn't really, I don't think, a fair word, but I'll just throw it out there, especially early in life, because, emotional outbursts are going to occur when you've got fire and water, and on top of that, but you have the water sign in the masculine luminary and the fire sign in the feminine luminary. So there's a lot going on there, which is part of why they can be a very creative combination. So, they're going to cry, and they might throw tantrums, they might not, but there's going to be a lot of emotional back and forth, and it's important that they're allowed to express that. If this particular combination here is exposed to harsh, strict, or overprotective environment growing up, they're going to burst out at some point, and they might burst out a little bit too early just to get free, and then learn how to deal with the real world almost sort of new, because they tend to be independent very young. But they're also really good at learning as they go and thinking on their feet. And a lot of times, both Pisces and Sagittarius, these two qualities come together. This is somebody who could take on a job with little to no experience and sort of fudge their way through, and then be the best at their job in months. Very quick learners. Maybe they didn't love school so much because it might have been rigid or whatever, but super quick to adapt. Now, super quick to adapt can also mean super malleable and gullible. So this combination has to be careful about falling for everything that looks too good. So again, the more the intuition is encouraged, the less that will happen. So the similarities, though, there are similarities. They both enjoy being part of a group or part of a system that promotes spiritual fortification, and they both enjoy exploring. Pisces explores the depths, and Sagittarius explores the stars, space, right? Both genuinely want others to be happy and fulfilled, but have different ways of helping. Pisces is more of a giver / enabler, if it goes the other way, and Sagittarius is more of an example. They more want to be the example to follow, or they might get a little bossy at times because they get really excited. This worked for me. What about you? Both like to look beyond the surface. Sometimes Pisces is scared to peel back the layers, but Sagittarius will forge ahead. Both are very adaptable. We already talked about this. And the other thing is they work pretty well in groups. Like Pisces rarely lets their ego get in the way of a better solution, especially if it means they don't have to be in charge. So, I mean, if there's some Leo hanging out there, like their sun's maybe 10th house by midheaven, they might have that leadership desire. I have some leadership desires too, and I can pinpoint it, but they don't always love to be in charge. And Sagittarius tends to prefer whatever supports the higher cause, whatever unites, everybody's desires. They might have a few raw and kind of blunt opinions about it, but they don't normally fight for supremacy. They are truth seekers. And the combination makes for great teachers, philosophers, writers, painters, public speakers, comedians. They could take a really good behind-the-scenes role in propping up other people. Generally, this combination won't generally stick with the same exact career their whole life. There will be a lot of, going in and out and just following more of their dreams and desires. So we have the sun living through accepting as Pisces, and the moon security through seeking as Sagittarius. So I hope that I was able to keep this nice and concise, and I didn't really feel like I was talking about me most of the time, but I might have been. And if you want your sun and moon combo done, do it. I have a whole bunch more scripted. I can't wait. I got like 6 or 7 more on paper, digital, ready to go. So I'm super excited about it. I could go on and on and on forever about sun and moon combos. I could be here twice the amount of time telling you all sorts of little nuances, but let's keep it short and sweet. If you want a reading, just, shoot me an email and we'll make it happen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye.